Hi friends, welcome back to another true crime story. Today's story, it's very heartbreaking. It's another honor killing, and this video was very difficult for me to record because the police has failed Banaz. She was in great danger and everybody that's supposed to protect her let her down, especially her family. Like I said, this case has poor policing and it involves sexual assault, domestic violence, and suicide. So if this is too heavy for you to listen to and you're too sensitive regarding these topics, then I highly recommend that you click off this video and let's talk about the honor killing of Banaz Mahmod. Banaz was a young Kurdish woman that came from Iraq. Banaz was born on 16th of September 1989. She moved to the UK with her family in the late 1990s, and they resided in Mitcham, South London. Banaz was known for her vibrant personality and her desire for independence. She was from a Muslim family, but she was very westernized. She just wanted to express herself. She chose to not wear the hijab and she just thrived in being who she was. And her family was completely against that. They wanted her to obey the family values and the culture, and it wasn't really for her. And because of that, it led to such tragedy in today's case. So the Mahmod family was a traditional Kurdish Iraqi household. They were practicing Muslims and they really took their traditions seriously. So Mahmud Babakir and his wife had a son and 5 daughters. Banaz was the youngest daughter in the family. In 1995, when Banaz was just 10 years old, the family sought asylum and migrated to the UK. Banaz's eldest sister was married off in an arranged marriage, and her younger sister Paisy was married off when she was only 16 years old to a man that was 15 years her senior, and he was also illiterate and very abusive. So Bekhal, which is the eldest sister, she decided to run away from home and run away from her marriage in 2002. So she spent her time living in foster care, sofa surfing between her friends' houses. She escaped the family altogether and she never returned home. All of the 4 sisters within that family underwent female genital mutilation. The eldest sister, Bekhal, reported to the police that she went through a lot of physical abuse and psychological abuse from her family due to the fact that she wanted to style her hair and wear westernized clothing that isn't aligned to the family traditional values. So she wanted to be a little bit more different and dress according to what she has seen her friends wear and things like that, but her family didn't accept who she actually was and what she's into. So basically you can't really have an opinion, and she endured a lot of abuse because of that. So Mahmud, their father, said if Bekhal doesn't return home by the end of this month, he will murder her mother and the whole family, and he will commit suicide. It is clear manipulation to regain control and power. Bekhal didn't fall for it and she stood her ground. And when she does go out to do things, she does wear a veil because she is so terrified that her family will attempt to kill her again. So she is extra vigilant. She is scared for her life and she has to go through great measures to keep herself safe. Based on what I've read, in the Kurdish community, if you cannot control your children, it's a sign of weakness and shame. And that is the last thing Mahmud wants for his family. At the age of 16 or 17, Banaz was forced to marry a man 15 years her senior. Banaz described her husband illiterate and has a mindset of a person that lives life 50 years prior. Throughout her marriage, Banaz contacted the police 5 different times, reporting incidents of physical abuse and sexual. She even told her family about the abuse, about the constant raping, but her family decided to let her know if she leaves her abusive marriage, it will bring shame to the family name. So they encouraged her to stay and endure the abuse. Banaz endured the abuse for 2 years, and in 2005 she went back to the family home, where she began a relationship with a man called Rahmat Soleimani. Banaz's uncle, named Ari Agha Mahmod, and her father disapproved of this new relationship and strongly advised Banaz to end it with Rahmat, but she refused. On December 2nd, 2005, the family held a meeting which included Mahmoud, Banaz's father, Ari Agha, the uncle, and a bunch of other distant family members. And they all agreed that Banaz and Rahmat need to be killed due to dishonoring the family. Worried for her safety, Banaz reported the incident to the police and the threats made against her and her boyfriend. She found out by overhearing a phone call between her uncle and her mother. On December 12, Banaz has written a letter to the Wimbledon police station detailing that her family were plotting to kill her, but it took the police 3 months to file her statement. 3 months. On New Year's Eve, the police were called to arrive at a cafe where Banaz was visibly scared and completely terrified. She told the police officer within the cafe that her dad just attempted to kill her. Banaz seemed to be under the influence of alcohol, which her father made her drink during the assault. She also had distinctive injuries on her hands when she broke the windows to escape. Witnesses described her as distraught, but the police officer interviewing her labeled her as melodramatic and manipulative. She also wanted to press charges against Banaz for breaking the window. Banaz was facing criminal charges for a window, and everything else she has said was not taken into account. She wasn't helped. She was simply ignored. While Banaz is recovering in the hospital, she recorded the conversation that she had with PC Angela and sent that to her boyfriend. She also explained everything that has happened to her boyfriend, detailing the attempt on her life and so on. As you can imagine, he was worried sick. On January 22nd of 2006, Rahmat was walking outside minding his own business where Banaz's uncles and distant family members came out of nowhere and tried to kidnap him, but he simply escaped. Both Banaz and Rahmat reported this incident to the police, and they were scheduled to see the police officers again on January 24th, but Banaz simply didn't arrive. On the morning of January 24th, 2006, Banaz's family decided to go shopping for her younger sister to buy clothing, and they were just out for the day. This means Banaz was sleeping alone in the lounge, and this is where she was completely surrounded by her dad, her uncle Ari Agha, and 3 of her distant cousins that arrived from Iraq. So 5 people circulated Banaz. So there's too many names in today's case, so I'm going to call them the 3 cousins. So trigger warning, I'm going to describe the murder now. So this is where it gets gruesome. Her 3 cousins decided to rape Banaz for 2 hours straight. They also tortured her and then eventually strangled her with a metallic wire. The wire was wrapped around her neck so tight to the point the wire was just indented into her neck, and they decided to stomp on her neck while they were strangling her. Based on what they have said later on in court, Banaz just lay there and didn't make a sound. She was completely caught off guard, helpless, and killed in her own family's home. Her body was then placed in a suitcase. Then they transported her all the way from Mitcham, South London to Handsworth in Birmingham in a random residence there that belonged to one of the cousins, and they buried her 6 feet deep in the garden. The family didn't report her missing. Even Banaz's own mother was aware that this was going to happen, and she did nothing. So on January 25th, 2006, Rahmat called the police and reported Banaz as missing. He was extremely worried because she usually would respond to his text messages immediately, and he knew something was off. And this is truly heartbreaking. It really is. As you could imagine, the police did not take this report seriously, and Banaz's family was portraying themselves as very charismatic and loving. When the family was questioned, Banaz's family, they said that Banaz is not missing and everything's fine, and the police just went away. However, Rahmat did not give up on Banaz, and he kept pestering the police up until someone decided to pick up the case and take it seriously. As a result, Banaz's family was interviewed, and the story had a lot of holes and inconsistencies, and the entire house was also searched. Rahmat decided to give all his text messages to and from Banaz to the police, and that really showed a character profile that Banaz's father is not a very calm and loving man that he claims to be. So the police now were very suspicious of Mahmod, Banaz's dad. The police finally decided to cross-reference Banaz's interviews and statements to what's happening now, and the investigators compiled a list of potential suspects. Banaz has named all of these men in her family that were plotting to kill her, and she was telling them from the beginning, all the information that the police needs is all there. However, everybody kept turning a blind eye apart from her boyfriend. The investigation now has been transferred to the Metropolitan Police and Serious Crime Command. Initially, at the beginning of the investigation, they believed Banaz was alive but held captive somewhere against her will. But when they started investigating, they realized that her phone was last pinged on January 23rd and her bank accounts were simply untouched. Banaz's dad, uncle, and 3 of her cousins were arrested, and while they were being interviewed, they were being very unresponsive and they weren't cooperating with the police. On February 4th, 2006, one of Banaz's cousins, called Mohammed Marid Hama, was arrested for murder. While in custody, Mohammed basically recorded himself bragging about the night of the murder, and he detailed and implicated his other 2 cousins and his uncle. He also said in the recording where Banaz's body was hidden. He gave it all away, which is good, but tragic at the same time. The recordings, alongside the vehicle tracking data, is where authorities were able to locate Banaz's body, and they eventually found her, hidden in a suitcase. Banaz's body was discovered on April 28th, 2006. On May 1st, 2006, Ari Akham Mohammed was charged with murder, like I said, and Banaz's father was charged with murder in August of the same year. Banaz's interview took place in Regent's Park Mosque. However, her family never showed up. It was clear that the family had made no funeral arrangements, and it's the police and the local authority that placed Banaz to rest. Her grave was also left unmarked, and a bunch of charity organizations that empower women were the ones that funded her funeral. A memorial service was held for her in June of 2007, and again, her family did not show up for that service either. Two of Banaz's far distant cousins that were involved in the murder ran off to Iraq, but they were eventually extradited from Iraq to London, where they were prosecuted and put in prison for life. Rahmat and Bekhal both testified in court, and they were very terrified in doing so, but they decided to go ahead with it. In June 2007, Banaz's father, Mahmod, was charged and sentenced to life in prison and a minimum of 21 years. Mohammed Hamra, Mohammed Salah, Omar Hussein were all convicted of murder, and they both were sentenced a minimum of 20 to 22 years in prison alongside a whole life tariff. After Banaz's murder, Rahmat was placed in witness protection. However, due to the fact that he was living in isolation and in fear, he couldn't handle the stress anymore. So unfortunately, he has decided to take his own life in 2016, as he couldn't cope with the murder of Banaz, like I said, and everything else that came as a result. DCI Carolyn Good referred to him as one of the real heroes, because without Rahmat, Banaz wouldn't have been reported missing, and he did everything he could to protect her, and Banaz was simply killed for being in love and ending a very abusive arranged marriage. Banaz's mother, that did absolutely nothing to stop this murder, wasn't convicted of anything. The police decided that they didn't have enough evidence against her, and she just didn't face any responsibility. So guys, this brings us to the end of today's case. It's a very heavy one. It is so sad, it's heartbreaking and completely unnecessary. Let me know who you would like me to talk about next week. Till then, stay safe, stay hydrated, and I'll see you guys in my next one. Have a good day. Bye.